Hello, hello. This is Irene, the SaugaTalks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. If you're not subscribed yet, if you're not following SaugaTalks yet on LinkedIn, on Twitter, X, I should say, or YouTube, please don't waste any more time because I'm speaking with fascinating people in tech here. And we're covering all the topics, all the way from AI and automation to effect on people and society and all of us. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt McDonagh. Matt, how are you?
I'm really well, Irene. Thank you so much for having me on. I've enjoyed the show, and so it's nice to be a guest finally.
Absolutely. Pleasure is mine. Absolutely. Because you are in a good intersection between technology. You're a
Yeah.
technologist now, right? We're going to talk about it very soon. But you're an entrepreneur. You Wall Street banker in the past. And your journey is amazing. Matt,
Guilty.
how did you get where you are right now?
Yeah, it's a long, strange trip. To your point, I started out even before investment banking. I was in search engine optimization, and I did that while I was at school at Fordham, and that gave me a sense for the power that technology has and the role that it could play. But I also needed to learn a lot more about the world, and so I wanted to finance investment banking. And I studied school here in New York. I went to a pretty large investment bank down on Wall Street, and I stayed there for about 4 years. About a year in, I actually wanted to leave. Nothing against the firm. I just had other ideas and aspirations. And they sat me down and said, you're just getting started. What do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to start a hedge fund. And they looked at me and they said, you're 25. What are you talking about? And I said, well, I want to try. And they tried talking me out of it. I didn't want to. So they gave me the permission to stand one up while I was still working at the firm, as long as I put all my trades through compliance. They could see that I wasn't doing anything silly. Anyway, and it was a great experience trying to launch my own hedge fund. And for the audience out there, I'm not being introduced as a hedge fund manager, and there's a reason for that. The hedge fund failed. We only got about 30 or 35 million under management, and you need something like 100 million under management to succeed. But it was a great experience for me, and it was also useful to be inside of an incubator, essentially, to be at an investment bank while I was trying to do that at the same time. So for all the entrepreneurs out there, taking risk is the way you get successful. But if you could take structured risk, that makes you a little bit safer at the same time. So anyway, I learned a lot, and then the investment bank was sort of eye-opening for me because I started to see that the role of technology was having an influence on economics, and the role of technology's influence on the economics of the industries were increasing as time was going on. So tech was playing a bigger and bigger role. So I jumped from tech into finance, and then immediately I started to get the bug and think like, oh, maybe I've made a mistake. Maybe I should be back in technology. So it's I've been
Exactly. And you're a
yeah,
technologist now, right?
yeah.
And you have an amazing LinkedIn profile. I encourage everyone, check out Matt's profile and check out his experiences and just connect with Matt. How about
Oh,
that?
thank you.
But we wanted to talk today about how technology changes the business outlook, the business model. So what have you discovered in your journey, Matt?
Well, so after the hedge fund failed, I had some private capital left over, and so I invested into five different companies, and almost immediately, two of them went out of business. At one of them, I could have maybe done something to help them if I had more information, and I realized that there was a little bit of information asymmetry. There was information that the business had that I, as an investor, didn't have. Not that they were keeping it from me; it's just it was locked away in a CRM, and it wasn't easy to get to. And so that's when I decided that I could build tools, technology that could help me maybe reach inside the CRM and pull out the status of a company. And that's why I founded Rev Systems, which is a revenue intelligence software startup. We started up last year. And basically, we connected the CRM. Like when you take your car to the dealer and they hook the car up to the check engine light little battery, and it reads and says, the computer says, oh, this code came up, this code came up, this code came up. I thought to myself, why isn't there a check engine light for the revenue engine? So I built one, and then I went to the other, two companies, three companies that were left, and said, please put this inside your CRM so I can get a case study or two and learn if it works and just get good information. And that's really been a lot of fun and a lot of success. And I've also learned a lot about the role that technology is playing in back office and in middle office. And so this is where generative AI and things like that are starting to become more and more prevalent because our ability to create information very quickly is allowing us to do things like scenario plan. We're able to do causal analysis and look at the difference between changing in velocities or pipeline dynamics and all sorts of other things. It's really an incredible world.
I'm on technology side, but it all quicker. Once we start technology conversation, it comes to people and effect on society really fast. Okay. So with the revenue optimization, right, with RevOps, which is a new term to me, but I'm learning. I'm learning here. Yeah. So how do people in organizations, all those stakeholders in sales, in marketing, in business functions, right? How do they take that change, you think?
Well, they need someone to step aside and to live above the noise, and that's where really revenue operations came from. Essentially, we had different silos. We had the sales team in the CRM, and then we had the marketing team inside their marketing automation tool. Customer success had a ticketing, and you've got lots of disparate pools of information in different places. And leaders and investors are trying to figure out what's happening, and they need some place to go to find the answers. And so revenue operations is born from that need. And it's really an answer. Our ancestor is sales operations, but things have evolved, like I just said. So now we're in a world where we are owning the revenue technology. We're owning the CRM, the marketing automation tool, the sales engagement platforms, and the sales intelligence tools. So, the modern RevOps stack has probably at least 6 pieces of software in it, maybe upwards of 10. And it's very complicated, and it's always changing. And so it's useful to have at least one person, hopefully a team of people that are thinking about nothing but what technology do I have, what teams are using it, and how are the processes in between them? Are there any silos where information is falling off or revenue is not being picked up properly? And so, as you can imagine, as an investor, I found revenue operations out of need because I needed information that I eventually came to learn the RevOps folks have. But a lot of the companies that I invested in were so early stage that they didn't have revenue operations. And so this became essentially almost like a value add for my family office that I stood up. McDonagh Family Office will invest, principally small amounts into private companies because I don't have big amounts. But then I try to add value by either introducing fellow investors that have more means than me, or by getting into the gears and looking at what the revenue engine looks like, maybe introducing Python scripts to automate the flow of reports back to executives, or performing natural language analysis on recordings of sales calls to understand, are there competitors being mentioned that we're not adequately addressing, or are there opportunities for maximizing the efficiency of the revenue engine that we haven't captured? So it really was just I fell into it, the whole revenue operations thing. I thought I was creating revenue ops, and then I started to realize, wait a minute, there's almost nothing new under the sun. There's probably folks who've been there before. And then I found a whole bunch of great influencers, like Andy Byrne at Clary and a few other really great companies. And I've just learned from a lot of the smarter people than me. If you're the smartest person in the room, leave the room. So thankfully, I've been in a lot of rooms where I am not the smartest one in the room, and that's where I picked up so much.
Beautiful. Could you provide some examples, where RevOps actually had an effect on bottom line? I don't need to be convinced, but some examples would be good to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, for instance, you in the CRM have different opportunity types. You might have a new business opportunity and a renewal opportunity. And most systems, most companies have some sort of automations in place where if they create a new opportunity, the renewal will automatically be created. Well, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you run a report and you say, how many renewals do I have next year? It could say you've got 100 renewals and you've got, $100 million worth of ARR coming. But unless you have a little bit of RevOps skills, you're not going to be able to analyze the system and determine, did any of the automations fail? Are there any renewals that didn't get created in the first place? And so when I'm providing account to my partners or my bosses, they are turning around and saying, hey, what the heck is going on here? So I've had examples where I've found, lost money, meaning contracts that were real contracts that we had, but were not in the CRM and that were not being reported back to the board. So literal found money. I've also found the opposite, right? Where, we've been counting the same contract 2 or 3 times, honestly, nothing untoward, but it was just mistakes, happening in the back office, or things were cloned inadvertently. And as a result, that can make revenue look bigger than it is, which is, arguably a bigger problem than having money that you didn't know about. So yeah, there's definitely examples on both sides of the barbell.
Cannot avoid that elephant in the room. It's not an elephant. It's actually a neighbor next to all of us right now. I'm talking about conversational AI. I'm talking about generative AI. All right. So what kind of effect you see from where you are? I love bringing up this question with all my guests here. Yep,
Yeah,
yep. So
generative is everywhere, and I don't think it's just buzz or hype. There's a lot of folks that they think that there's hype cycles, and I do agree that technology typically does get pushed through these troughs and crests and troughs and crests. The reason I think generative is not really going to trough anytime soon is because we're getting better at meshing it into our strategy, right? At first, generative was just used for spamming messages out and dropping the person's first name in and maybe some little blurb that came from their LinkedIn profile. And it was sort of personalized, but very impersonal. And now we're getting to a place where we've got, CRMs that have generative AI built into them, and they're able to read 2 or 3 different data sources and then come up with a truly novel email that wasn't written by anyone in particular, but it actually makes it sounds like the author spent some time writing it. The first things that I saw in the RevOps world that were generative were related to that. But later, we started to see, back office ideas, mapping out your revenue engine and knowing how all the fields talk to each other, what the relationships are, and how the formula fields are going. That can be very difficult to understand. And there's a number of companies now that are using generative technology that connect to your Salesforce, connect to your HubSpot, connect to your revenue technology, and they quickly create essentially documentation for you. So instead of using the generative technology to generate responses to clients, it's using the generative technology to read your data model and then spit out, here's a list of all your tables, here's your top 20 customers, here's everything you need sort of laid out in front of you. So yeah, it's really everywhere. And now we're starting to figure out ways that we can leverage it to enhance client experience, to speed up the sales cycle, to reduce the churn rate, and in general to just enhance our ability to meaningfully change the lives of our customers without spending a ton of money trying to do so. Because obviously, business is about profit, not just about top line.
absolutely. What about automation and process efficiency? Look like when we're improving customer experience, when we're improving employee experience, right? Internal processes. What kind of effect you seeing, happening out there in the
Mm.
organizations?
Yeah. Well, automation's been around for a long time, and I know you know that with your own background. But the first point that I was talking about, the generative, is really what's exciting because automation is only as good as the brain that's driving it. And when you're able to generate things and then automate on the back of that in real time, you've got a lot more oomph. And again, the example that I gave earlier is still a good one here, where you've got generative coming up with the message body and then the automation sending it based on whatever the correct time to send it is to engage with that prospect. Yeah, automation is definitely increasing in terms of its influence, and I think that as the natural language and other artificial intelligence increase in capability, you're going to find the role of automation getting less and less mundane. Meaning, right now, automation still largely isn't too smart, right? Automation still it's the same relative number of known processes and influences and forces that are all just kind of being pushed through a data fabric of some kind. We're getting to a place where you're going to be able to almost talk to a GPT-5 and say, hey, my company's priorities are lowering my cost per click while increasing my average value of my customer. I don't want to market on these 15 platforms. And, I think my ICP is this, but feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, and hit enter. And then you spit out like a 15-page dissertation. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel comfortable having a fully autonomous revenue engine where I am just at the beach and it's calling customers for me and sending emails and doing everything. I don't think I'll ever want to get my hands fully off the reins like that, but I love automation taking away as much of that as possible so that I can focus on the high lever, high fulcrum events that really have larger impact.
Decision making, all right? We're not yet comfortable AI making decisions where it matters, right? Business decisions, strategic decisions, no,
Yep.
not yet, right? But what
Correct.
about tactical? What about how do we better implement AI capabilities in terms of helping with decision making?
Yeah, I think you're on the ball there. Letting the machine make complete decisions when it comes to heart surgeries or business decisions are probably a long ways off from being comfortable with that. But we have to acknowledge that machines are able to analyze signals that we can pick up faster than we can in parallel. And really, the sweet spot is the power and proficiency and efficiency of machines with the creativity and intuition of humanity. And so the right mix is somewhere in between that spectrum. And as far as leveraging it into decision making, I do think we're going to get to a place where the natural language capabilities get so good that you could start to have strategic conversations. You may not let the machine action for you, but you might form yourself a council of AI, and you might have one AI that's very kind of aggressive, very forward looking, very like, here's how we try to take over the world. And then you've got one AI that's a little bit more playing defense for you, watching your six, making sure that your resources are efficiently, and you can have one that's just out there thinking completely random thoughts. What if we opened up a new business line? What if we reached out to this industry and tried to form strategic partnerships? And you could have, like I said, a council of AI where you're talking to them, but I'm still going to be the one who actions them, at least for a long time.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you know what? We cannot talk about technology without mentioning the loop, the amazing, powerful loop between science, technology, and engineering. Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
referring to your article. So please, please
You read it.
follow Matt
Thank you.
on LinkedIn. You've got a bunch of resources there. I'm learning a lot from. So can you
Thank you.
tell us, please, science, technology, and engineering in that loop, where
Yes.
again, where business should actually fit in, or what's the role of the business around it?
So this is the part where I fess up and admit I stole part of this from Ray Kurzweil, but then I scaffolded off of it, right? So Ray is an amazing mind, engineer. I believe he still works at Google. He came up with optical character recognition, scanning documents and turning them into actual letters on a computer screen back in the 70s. And he's noted the rise in transistors. He's noted the connectivity of different networks. And so he was the one who first brought to my attention through a book, not firsthand, that science and technology are in a sort of dance with each other, right? Science is the increased resolution of understanding, while we're also gaining new questions to figure out to ask in the first place. And then technology are tools that we use to pierce deeper and deeper into science. So, you could essentially understand that science is coming up with new technologies that we're able to then use to unlock new science. Now, believe it or not, sometimes you need to connect those two a little bit more directly in order for it to be useful. And I think of that as engineering. This is the new part that I added, where you could think of engineering as a bridge between science and technology and back again from technology to science. And these are forming flywheels with technology, science, and engineering spinning faster and faster and faster. And the cool thing is businesses are starting to sit on top of these flywheels. We're using them to create efficiencies, to find customers at lower cost points, to treat customers better, and to enhance our net promoter score and things of that nature. So it's incredible to see these converging forces all, you're essentially at the knee of so many curves at the same time, and they're all kind of intersecting with each other in a beautiful mesh. And the future is unknowable, but I could definitely see it coming at me faster and faster. And that's exciting, because as that's happening, there are challenges, right? Structural unemployment and things that technology could cause, but we've always found our ways around that in the past. But the upside of it, I think, is vistas of unlimited creativity, where the machines are doing a lot of quote unquote the grunt work, and we're busy creating and kind of playing a more elevated game.
Exactly, and more of it, more of it. I encourage everyone to check out Matt's publication, Life in the Singularity. Matt, right? We'll put
Yeah, that's
the
right.
link down here, because it's a wealth of information, great resources, and encouraging read. I am enjoying it immensely. Matt, thanks so much for this. So yeah, just turning the wheel a little bit further in terms of, we talked about technology, we talked about business, but what about these new business models? Because we hear a lot about how entrepreneurship changing, singlepreneurship, right? We're talking
Yes.
about platform economy, creator economy, where the future is in these terms, Matt, please.
Well, if you've got automation and AI creating a beautiful dance where many of us don't need to sit there at the office pushing buttons and clacking for 10 hours a day, then we're going to have a cognitive surplus. I'm borrowing this now from Daniel Pink, but the idea is that as we free up time, we have to do something with it. And I think that, when you look at the Industrial Revolution in London, when the machines came online, and I don't mean the computers, I mean like the original OG Industrial Revolution, you also saw bars and the consumption of gin come online because there was a cognitive surplus and extra time. So what I I think we need to do as a culture is find more productive outlets for this excess time that we have coming in front of us. And so I think that looks like single person businesses, solopreneurships, and creative endeavors. And I think we're going to form, one person brands on X, on platforms like X. And then we're going to, talk about our unique experiences and what makes us, different. Once we have artificial super intelligence, are you really going to go on the internet and say anything that's going to blow anyone's mind or break any, brand new news? It's going to be difficult because of how advanced that technology really is going to be versus us. But what the machines are never going to have is your story. They're never going to have the unique mix of where you were, what you saw, what you felt, right? All at the same time. And so I think each of us are going to be on platforms like X, sharing our stories, sharing what we've learned, sharing cool new ways we figured out to use the AI to do something neat. So that adventure is never going to stop. So yeah, I do see an incredible sort of utopia is a bit of a naughty word because it sounds like you're not paying attention. Like you're not really going to get to utopia. That's why you say it's utopic. But I do think that we are heading for an age of abundance and a place where we have a lot of time and we have a lot of available bandwidth to focus it on things that are more creative and more holistic than just so granular and focused on getting our work product completed and off to the next thing. So I love that you said life in the singularity is hopeful, because I do think it's hopeful, but I also think it's realistic, and I try to bring the hope, but I also try to point back to the technological advancements that I think underpin why I'm hopeful in the way that I am.
A lot of young people, I know a lot of mid-career people or people close to retirement who are a bit frustrated now, okay, with all the changes they coming really fast on all of us, right? So the keyword is jobs. People still looking, right, how relevant they will be in a short period of time, no matter, again, of background almost, right? Even, I don't know, people with technical background now, it's not so easy to place yourself because, again, there is some freezing in hiring right now, right, going on. So what's your outlook in kind of economics / business / technology nearest future, I would say? What should young people do when they're trying to find like the good way to start a career?
No, for sure. So I think that prompt engineering or natural language programming, the ability to converse with AIs is a high leverage skill that you can learn literally by signing up for, Claude, which is Anthropic. That's free still. You can get on the Chat GPT, not Plus, but you can use the regular version and actually ask it how to talk to it. I know that sounds silly, but you could say, what are the core tenets of prompt engineering? Can you please give me some examples of reinforcement learning? Can you help me learn? And that's how I started to get better at ChatGPT. I asked it what to do with it, and then it gave me some examples. And then I said, well, what if I mix this with this? And it oh, good idea. So it's iterative. And I think that while, like we did touch on this briefly, there might be instances where a company that was about to hire a new software engineer doesn't need to anymore because co-piloting technology and AI coding technology is making the existing team productive enough that they don't need to add another head. The good news is, though, I think for every one role that is not being hired because of that, there are 3 whole new companies that are being created. Now, there might be 1 to 3 person companies, but that means you've got a chance at equity, you've got a chance at being creative, you've got a chance at really getting out there and seeing the world, not behind a screen or inside a cubicle, but actually going out there into the business world. So I think net, this whole wave that we're seeing is going to be an incredible wave of job creation, and I think that there might be some structural unemployment, in short pockets, but the line always shifts, and quickly new opportunities are created, right? I mean, famously, they back in the day, they would talk about the buggy whips, and they would say, oh, where are those people gonna go who make buggy whips? Well, mechanics are it's a lot more complicated, and it's a lot more high paying than buggy whip manufacturing. So while we lost one, sort of low end manufacturing job, we probably created 300 other higher end mechanical jobs. And I think similarly, AI is gonna do the same thing, except perhaps to a much greater extent. So I think net, it's a huge benefit for the economy.
Amazing. Here's my next question. I know you're very active within Python community, all right? So can you give us some idea, because investment banker background is not preparing you for any Python coding. How did you make that leap, and what role you playing now?
I like to think I'm long-term lazy. And so when I'm doing something, and I do it again and again and again, and Excel can't do it quite right, or it's requiring too much like additional head bashing, I start to look elsewhere to figure out, is there a way to fix this, or is there a way to do it better? And so I saw that when I was in banker, I was continuously trying to pull Edgar filings, look at the same basic numbers, do the same basic math to it, and then spit out some spreadsheets and hand it off to my managing director. I said, well, why don't I just build a script to just connect it to Edgar and then rip out all the tickers that I want and then run the analysis, exploratory data analysis it's called, run the analysis and then spit it back out automatically. And then I can run it on schedules. And then I could have it, once I know in the 10Q and the quarterly filings and everything are coming out, I could wait a day after, T+1, right? Time +1. And then I could reach into the system again, automatically, and not without any, no work on my part after I set the script up. And then it does what it needs to do. So like I said, I'm long-term lazy. I only learned it because I was trying to free up time for something else. And it was a rabbit hole because then I realized, man, I could use this for so many things. Like you can, now it's kind of easier and easier with Zapier and generative AI to do a lot of these things. But back in the day, there was no real easy way to, look at all of your LinkedIn interactions and do some like basic analysis and try to figure out which of your content was having the biggest hit. And Python was useful for me for that. So I just found little projects and I did them mostly to get better at it for my own interest. And then later on, Rev Systems, the revenue intelligence firm that I started up, we leveraged Python to an extent because we performed exploratory data analysis on behalf of our partners whenever they ask us to take a better look. So yeah, it's a great tool. It's the people pejoratively say that Python is the second best language at everything. And first of all, what's wrong with that? It sounds like you could do anything if you know the second best language at everything. But I also argue that Python, because of libraries and its modular structure, is really the most powerful language that you could bring with you into the digital world. And if the world really is dissolving into code, ones and zeros, then why wouldn't you want to bring a powerful language with you?
Incredible message out there, Matt, we're sending to everyone who is listening to us, because just start playing, right? Just stop worrying, just start experimenting, right?
Yes.
And you might find the smallest application today just improve your own, I don't know, social media coverage. Why not, right? And it takes you places, right? And people hire those who are looking for solutions, right? Instead of, perfect.
Being able to point to a portfolio of work, even if it's quote unquote silly work, it shows so many things. It shows that you can identify a problem, you can lay out a solution on paper, hopefully, then you can articulate it into code, and then you can build it. So even if it's like a machine to go find cheaper stamps to go buy, if the script is interesting, then I'm interested in the script maker.
Amazing. So any resources we can point those who want to learn Python? Looks like
so there's tons. Python is a very open community. There's a guy called Mosh, and he's got a YouTube series, and I've watched his videos 100 times. And when people ask me to teach them Python, I force them to watch his 6-hour course and then hand me their notebooks, their little Jupyter notebooks, and prove to me that they really did the exercises, and then I'll help them after that. So he's a great, there's a scene in The Matrix when Neo gets uploaded with basically a bunch of programming, and then he says, "I know Kung Fu" at the end. That's the punctuation mark. Mosh can teach you Kung Fu, so I would check him out.
Exactly, it's for Confor and everything else, right? Check it out. Beautiful, Matt. Amazing talk. Time is flying today, all right?
I know, it's amazing.
Thank you so very much for your time. We want to leave our audience with a few takeaways, okay? It looks like we covered a lot of topics, lots of angles. Follow Matt for more. A few takeaways maybe to remember this conversation by.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that you made a point earlier about for people who are getting, kind of lost in the rising rate of change. Unfortunately, the only thing you could look forward to in the future is an accelerating rate of change. So you need to get more and more comfortable with that. And, the good thing about being uncomfortable is it means you're growing. So take that as a good sign. Don't be scared of your discomfort. Know that you're pushing your boundaries. And you can reach out to me. You can reach out to many of the people, Irene, many of the people that she's interviewed, because we're all passionate about bringing technology to people, because technology is nothing without the user at the other end of it. Even if everything becomes automated and AI driven, it's all for a point. It's all for the user. It's all for us. So I would say that, just lean into the future, enjoy it. It's going to be a wild ride for all of us. It's moving just as fast for each of us too. So if you get overwhelmed, just know that we're all enjoying the same dance. And science, engineering, and technology are going to keep spinning. So just enjoy the song.
Thank you, thank you. We're all helping out each other here. Absolutely, good call to action. So reach out to Matt, reach out to me if you know someone in my network that you're interested to learn from. Happy to connect. Absolutely, any kind of human engagement, human interaction, we're all better because of it. Thank you, Matt, so very much for this talk today.
It was great. Thank you.